Okay, welcome everyone. Israel is back at war, as you all know. Last night I had dinner with a soldier. He's here missing his leg. He's here to get a prosthetic with us. And he told me his brother has just been, they went into the Netzarim corridor. So that's splitting Gaza from the north into the south. And we're back at war. We don't want war. Israel doesn't want war. But obviously we have to eradicate evil. When Mashiach comes, it says, Umacha Hashem Elokim dim'ah. God will erase all tears from us, but Amalek and all evil will be eradicated, and Israel needs to do what's necessary to destroy evil. My daughter is in Israel. The last 2 nights she's been woken up at 4 a.m. from the Houthim, from the Yemenites, right? They're throwing missiles at us. So the whole Israel, when they throw a missile, the whole Israel's on that red alert app. So everywhere in Israel, nobody's sleeping. It's mind-boggling. It's crazy. You know, in Gaza, when they throw a missile, it's like, a couple of people here, a couple of people there, the south. But when Yemen throws it, it's the whole entire Israel. You have these red alert apps. So we need to eradicate evil, destroy them completely. No mercy on evil, destroy them. If you have mercy on evil, you're actually being cruel to good people, right? When you're kind, when you should be cruel, you end up being cruel when you should be kind. Okay. So, we had a soldier who left town today. He was here on a Belev Echad trip. He told us that he was injured. So on October 7, his unit, his team was stationed in the north. Right, so everybody's focusing on the south, but Israel was terrified that there'd be an attack in the north as well. And on October 8th, they already had drafted tons of miluim, of reserve units, to go and protect the north. So on October 8th, it was night, his team received intelligence that there are 4 terrorists on the northern border, and they're already penetrating into Israel. And this sent alarms, and it was crazy. And remember that on October 7th in the south, 25% of injuries were from friendly fire. The reason for that is because Hamas terrorists were dressed up as IDF soldiers very often. And they would go into the homes, they would say, "Tzu achuta, go outside," it's Sahal, in a regular Hebrew accent, like not Arabic accent. So his unit was stationed there. They heard there's intelligence, there's Hezbollah terrorists. They went over there and they came under heavy fire. 600 to 700 bullets were fired at them. And it turns out it was friendly fire. It was IDF soldiers who thought they were the terrorists, and they thought the IDF soldiers were the terrorists. So he got shot 5 times in the leg, destroyed his nerves, destroyed his bones, as well as, one of the soldiers came up pretty close to him and shot him basically in the head, but he was able to duck in the last minute. The bullet grazed his skull. So we're fighting evil. We need to adapt, and this is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about this. Just one more story. One of the soldiers who was here with us, he told me when he was in Gaza, he saw this old lady in a house. Old lady seems pretty harmless, right? And she signals to him, "No, come, I need help." And when he gets near her, he realizes it was an ambush. Her son from the 2nd floor was aiming at him, and he shot him. That's how he was injured. So actually, his friend was so angry. His friend took a thing and shot the grandmother dead. But tonight, I want to talk about eradicating evil, the Messianic times. Come have a chair. You guys have a seat. You good? So we're talking about eradicating evil, specifically the month of Nisan coming up. So Passover, it says 30 days before the Yom Tov, you're supposed to start studying all about the laws of Passover. You're supposed to start cleaning. Some people get nervous. Jews, we get very nervous. How to clean the house. And Chametz get rid of it. But you're supposed to really study the laws of Passover. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to do tonight is teach you a little bit about Nisan. Chodesh Nisan. Nisan is the month of miracles. Passover, it says, Ben Nisan nig'alu avotenu. On Passover, our forefathers were taken out of Egypt, and we believe strongly that on Passover we will be redeemed in the future. That's what the halakha is, that the month of Nisan, which is coming up now, that's Chodesh Nisan, is in a week and so time. This is when we are going to experience the future redemption, and I want to talk just a little bit about this and connect it to our lives today. What does it mean, practically speaking? So we're talking about the greatest revolution ever to take place. By the way, there's been 3 massive revolutions in history. Revolution number 1 was the Industrial Revolution. Right? The Industrial Revolution came, and we basically brought, instead of horses and wagons, we brought trains, locomotives, right? People, it was unimaginable in Russia that there should be, it was a massive industrial revolution, changed the whole world. The second revolution, right, and obviously there's a little more, but the second revolution was the digital revolution. Right, when the computer came out, who remembers the joysticks, the Apple Commodore 64, you know? The digital revolution changed the entire world. Right, and that includes smartphones and Facebooks and WhatsApps and Instagrams, the whole digital revolution. But the greatest revolution of all is unfolding in front of our eyes, and that is the AI revolution. Now let's think a second like this. In our lives, there's something called machshava, dibur, and maaseh. Take a deep concept now. Machshava is thought, dibur is speech, maaseh is action. So you can your soul can express itself in one of 3 ways. Either you could think something, or you could say something, or you could do something. There are no other ways to express yourself. It falls under thought, speech, and action. The Industrial Revolution fell under which category? Action. It fell under the realm of maaseh. The Digital Revolution is undoubtedly speech. But the AI revolution, what makes it the greatest revolution of all, and more revolutionary than is because it's all in thought. It's teaching computers how to think. That is going to be it's already unfolded. It's not it's going to be. It's already, right, the greatest revolution happening, unfolding in front of our eyes. And perhaps this is a forebringer to the real greatest revolution of all, which is Mashiach, which is I'm going to discuss now. Right. So the fact that Hashem is showing us what we are capable of in our times is perhaps a foretaste. A taste of what's going to come. You know, I'm learning with my son. Every day he calls me, and we have to learn about the Messiah. Inyone Geula Mashiach. Every day from 5:15 to 5:45. Actually, today he didn't call me. I have no idea why. I hope he's okay. I have no way of reaching him because he doesn't have a phone. But we talk about Mashiach. So we're learning talks of the Rebbe in 1990, 1991, 1992, which were all geared about Mashiach. And one of the things the Rebbe says is, we say every day in our prayers, that when Mashiach comes, all the Jews from all over the world will live in Israel. There's going to be the ingathering of exiles, the lost tribes, all going to come back. So the fact that Russia, the Iron Curtain fell, and there were so many hundreds of thousands of Jews coming back to Israel, the Rebbe said that's a taste of Mashiach. And all the miracles that took place in 1990, the Gulf War, the Scud War, 91, 92, and all, including the Rebbe, I read a whole talk, we learned a whole talk about the fact that there was a conference between America and the USSR about destroying nuclear weapons, limiting nuclear weapons in the world. And the Rebbe said this is unheard of. And the only reason it's happening is because this is a taste of Mashiach. Hashem is allowing us to taste Mashiach. And Mashiach is coming now. Let me prove it to you. How many days of creation are there? 6. By God, every day, it says in Tehillim, in Psalms, King David says every day by God is 1,000 years by us. Right? You heard that before? It's in Tehillim, in Psalms. Yom Echad is 1000 Shana, is 1,000 years. So Mashiach comes on Shabbat, on Saturday. That's when Mashiach is coming. So think about this now. Which year are we in now? Which one? 5785. So from year 0 till year 1000, which day is that for God? Day 1. 1000 to 2000? 2 to 3? 3 to 4? 4 to 5? 5 to 6 is day number 6. That means we now, 5785, we nearly finished this 6,000 year. So it's Friday afternoon. When does Shabbat start? Friday afternoon. So we literally, in Friday evening, it's like literally the afternoon. No, in Jerusalem, for example, where my daughter is, so this whole year she's been Mikabel Shabbos, she accepts Shabbos in Jerusalem 40 minutes early. Actually, in the whole world, we accept Shabbat 18 minutes early. In Jerusalem, they decided there's actually a place in Petach Tikva they do that we accept Shabbat early, 40 minutes early. So we actually 5785 literally right by Shabbat, which means Mashiach is coming. Okay. Here's how the Talmud describes Mashiach. This is fascinating. Talmud says like this. Ve'avdu et Hashem Elokayim, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'amid lahem David acher. In the future, God will give us another King David. Right? King David was the first king of Israel from the tribe of Yehuda after Shaul. Next king of Israel, the last king is Mashiach. Shenemar v'David Avdi Nasi v'David Malcolm Asher Akim Alem. David Amelech was a king, and there will be another King David. Amalei repopala abaye v'aksiv lahem lo'ilam. And here's what the Gemara says: Kegoin Kesar upalge Kesar. Mashiach will be like Kesar is the Caesar, and Palge Kesar, half Caesar, Viceroy. Come have a seat. This is very strange. Have you ever heard that Mashiach is called Caesar? Have you ever heard that King David is called half a Caesar? This is really, really strange. And by the way, if you listen carefully tonight, there's such a beautiful message here. Unbelievable. And this is straight from the Talmud. Like, I'm not talking about strange sources here. This is straight from the Talmud. The Talmud says the King David is called half Caesar and Mashiach is called Caesar. Where does this come from? What does this mean? So, Caesar, who was the first Caesar? Anyone know?
Augustus.
Who?
Augustus. What are you going to say? Julius?
Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, the story is like this. Julius Caesar, right, passed away, was killed actually, right? He was stabbed 23 times. Et tu brute, right? Was that said about Julius Caesar or no? Et tu brute. I thought you were my friend. Is that what it is? Who killed him? What's in the guy's name?
Brutus.
Who?
Brutus.
Brute. Oh, yeah. Okay. Et tu brute. Yes. By the way, the Jews really liked Julius Caesar. By the way, they really, really liked him. The whole history about Julius Caesar, the Jews really, really, really liked him. But how did he get his name? Julius Caesar. Where did he get his name from? Right, Julius Caesar ruled the world. He was the most powerful Roman emperor. He lived 30 years, I think, more or less, before the destruction of the temple, before the Romans destroyed the temple. Right, after he died, the Jews became disfavorable with the Romans, and they were all killed and destruction of the temple. But Julius Caesar, his name was adopted by all the Caesars. Not just that. Every king in front, Caesar in Yiddish, it's Kaiser, right? In all different languages. Caesar in Hebrew, in Yiddish, in French, every single language there is. Okay. And here is, I have this written down for you, so I want to show this to you. There we go. Okay, where does the name Caesar come from? Here is the shir. If you were dozing off till now, start concentrating now. The Gemara says like this: Lesoif kama shanim, after a couple of years, Malach aleim echad b'chazaka, there was a ruler who ruled powerfully over them, the Romans. Shemeisa imoy, while his mother was giving birth to him, belei dasa, nivka bitna, her stomach was opened. Right, the mother died giving birth to him. Her stomach was opened. Umitzau chai, they found a child alive in there. Umalach aleim, and he became king. V'nikra Kesar b'lashon Romi, and he was called Kesar. So the original Kesar was actually Julius Caesar's grandfather. Was born. What do we call it today? C-section. C-section. Julius Caesar. Caesar. C-section. This is where it comes from. Okay, the original child, they didn't know what to call it. What they did was Caesarian. Caesarian. This is where it is. Julius Caesar. Caesarian. Caesar in Latin means a cut. This is where it comes from. It means a cut. That's why you call it Caesarian birth. Right? So when the fetus cannot exit the womb in a natural way, you cut open a new opening, a new path, a new way, Caesarian birth, C-section, Julius Caesar, and that's how Julius Caesar's grandfather was called, and that child became king, and that's why they called all the kings Caesar. Fascinating, right? What's this got to do with the Messiah? Why on earth would the Messiah be called Caesar? Hold on. So to explain this, here's a little story. Okay, what does this got to do with Mashiach? By the way, this is not just in Roman. Like, as I said before, all the European kings, they're all called some version of Caesar. In French, in German, in Yiddish, Caesar, Kaiser, Caesar, everything. So once upon a time, there was a little Jew. His name was Moishele. And Moishele was a poor Jew. And he went knocking on doors. And he was very tired at night. Why? Because in Europe, they probably had these townhouses there. And he had to go upstairs and knock on the door. And he was so tired by climbing up the stairs each time, knocking on door, and they give him a grape or they give him a little bit of water, a piece of bread, He got very, very tired. So at the end of a tiring day, he sits on a park bench and he's relaxing. And he starts to dream. He thinks big. He says, like Tevye, Fiddler on the Roof, right? If I were a rich man, what would I do? He thinks to himself, what would I do? I'm going to have a lot of power. I'm going to have a lot of influence. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure that all new houses which are built will only be 1 or 2 stories high. So you won't have apartment buildings. You have to go upstairs, up and up and up and up and up. I'll make a rule that all new houses all have 1 or 2 stories. That's it. So I won't have to climb up when I go and schnorr and beg for bread. Right? So poor Moishele was never able to liberate himself from the idea that his life is going to be confined to begging and begging and begging. Right? He just lives in a world where that's his world. By the way, in the olden days, they used to have, they trained elephants, right? Elephants and lions. So one time there was a Jew who goes over to this elephant train and he sees, there's an elephant train and they put a little chain on his leg. Tiny little chain on his leg. And the elephant, he's like a little baby. He can't move. And so the guy goes over to the trainer. He said, I don't understand. This elephant, this is what shackles him? You tie him with a little chain. This elephant can take the whole chain and the whole building and he just move. How do you tame him like that? So the trainer said, very simple. When he's a little baby, we put that chain on him. And that chain, when he's a baby, he can't get out of. And he struggles and he struggles and he struggles for a few days and a few weeks. Eventually he realizes that chain is impossible to get out of. And even when he's an adult and he can easily rip it apart, his mind won't let him think that he can get out of those shackles. And this is the metaphor of our lives. You see, sometimes we are confined. We are used to something and we can't dream big. We can't get out of that mentality. Cannot get out of it. And an example would be, we're coming over to Passover. And if you read the Passover story, when Moses went to Egypt to Pharaoh, what was his request to Pharaoh? What did he ask him? Let my people go is not correct, but that is correct. Let my people go for 3 days to serve God. Now, if you look carefully at the story, not once in the entire story did Moses ask Pharaoh, let my people go forever. Not even once. It was always, we're going to the desert for a 3-day excursion, retreat, yoga, meditation. We're going to sacrifice some cattle and we are coming back. Not once did he tell him we're not coming back. Why? Why would Moses lie? I wouldn't use the word lie, but mislead him. Why would he do that? Pharaoh was broken down with blood and frogs and lice until the plague of the firstborn was completely shattered. You could do whatever you want. By the way, imagine we could do 10 plagues in Gaza and get the hostages out of Gaza. That's what Moses did. He did 10 plagues and he got the hostages out of Egypt. Not 59 hostages. He got 3 million Jews out of being hostages. They were in the tunnels of Egypt. That's where they were. And Moses got them out with 10 plagues. You imagine that's how you take hostages out of Gaza. Just FYI. But why did Moses mislead Pharaoh? Anybody know? All the commentaries struggle with this. One of the beautiful answers given is Moses didn't do it for Pharaoh. He did it for the Jews. If Moses would have told the Jews, we're leaving Egypt, never coming back, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Because they were so confined to a slave mentality. Their whole lives, they had lived as slaves. Their parents had lived as slaves. Their grandparents had lived as slaves for 210 years. All they knew was the slave mentality. We have to wake up in the morning and we have to work for Pharaoh, work, and he kills us and he tortures us and he maims us and he afflicts us and we don't know anything else. So the reason why Moses said it was for the Jews, because they couldn't get it out of their heads to leave Egypt. What a tragedy. And it's the exact same thing here. Can you imagine if Mashiach comes today and says to us, I want you to leave Manhattan and go live in Gaza, where Trump's taking all the Arabs out of there. You're going to live now in Gaza, right? Trump's going to make it beautiful in the Trump Hotel in Gaza. Who wants to do that? Who wants to live there?
I'd live in a Trump hotel.
You live in the Trump Hotel in Gaza? But he'd take us out. We have our friends here. We have our families here. We have our Rolls Royces here. We have our homes in the Hamptons here. We have our cars. We have our lives. We have our jobs. We have our routine. You still want to leave, right? Good. You're good. You're good. You know the story of the Cossacks in Ukraine. A husband comes to his wife one time, a Yiddish husband, a Yiddish wife, and he says, the rabbi gave a lecture. He says, Mashiach's coming soon, and we're all going to Israel. So she says to him, well, what are we going to do with the cow? So he goes back to the rabbi, and he says, my wife says, what are we going to do with the cow? So the rabbi says, you'll take your cow, you'll sell it, and you'll go to Israel. So she said, what are we going to do with the house? He goes to ask the rabbi. Anyway, she says to him after, go tell the rabbi, what do we do with the Cossacks? So he says, the Cossacks will stay here and you'll go to Israel. So she says to him, go tell the rabbi that he should take the Cossacks, take them to Israel, and we'll stay here. Right? So we're so comfortable with our lives. But what does Mashiach mean? What is a leader? Truth is, what is a leader? What does a leader mean? A leader, Mashiach is called Caesar, is called Caesar. A leader is a revolutionary. Mashiach is going to cause the greatest revolution in history. The reason why Mashiach is called Caesar is because the original Caesar, what does C-section mean? When you can't go out the natural way, you open up a door and go a different way. That is why they are called kings. That is why Mashiach is called Caesar. Because when you can't go the natural way, find a different path. A leader is somebody who's able to think out of the box. A leader is somebody who's able to take you out of your regular thinking, take you out of your regular routine, make you realize you are a prince, you are a princess. Your father is the Almighty King of God. You belong to royalty. Mashiach, as I'm going to explain in a second, the exact revolution is going to cause the greatest revolution in the history of all revolutions. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution cost tens of millions of lives. The revolution of Mashiach won't cost a single life. It will come and show us that in this physical world, in this physical universe, everything is possible. Mashiach will come to uplift, to bring spirituality down into this world. Everybody will live forever. There won't be a single person dying. Everybody who died will be resurrected. They will all live again. Israel, the borders of Israel will be expanded into biblical Israel, Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. All these, the Middle East will no longer be a dot of Israel. Israel will be big. But without a single person dying. What does Mashiach mean? It goes back to our purpose, our why. What are we doing here in this world? We are here every single day. When we do a mitzvah, we bring spirituality into this world. We draw down godliness into this world. Mashiach is the ultimate connection between the spiritual and the physical. It says when Mashiach comes, if you are standing on a stone and you're not studying Torah, the stone will scream at you, what right do you have to stand on me if you're not studying Torah? Mashiach will be the one, and this is the powerful line, that will open up our eyes and make us see the spiritual in this world. Right now we are all blind. We're blind. We cannot see the hand of God in this world. We cannot. We just don't see it. Mashiach will open up our eyes to be able to see the universe, to see spirituality in it. The story is told of John Roebling building the Brooklyn Bridge. You guys know the story? Tell us, Melanie. The story of the Brooklyn Bridge. You guys know it? Raise your hand if you know it. Not very familiar, right? The Brooklyn Bridge was built. The story goes back to 1870. There was a guy, young engineer by the name of John Roebling, and he was inspired by the idea to connect New York and Long Island. And everybody said it's impossible. Before 1870, there was no Brooklyn Bridge. It was impossible. There was no way to do it. And the guy thought and he thought and he thought. He was a leader. He was a revolutionary guy. And he said it could be done. And he convinced people in Washington to give him permission. And everybody thought he was Meshuggah. The whole world thought he was crazy. And he went and he did it. How did he do it? He started, and there was an accident after he started, and his son was killed in the accident, and he became a cripple. And everybody said, you see, we told you it could not be done. We told you. You thought it could be done. It cannot be done. And then he found a way to communicate with his eyes. It was moving a thing. He was able to communicate to his wife, and he was able to continue communicating to the team of engineers that he had assembled by moving his eye or something like that, and they were able to build the Brooklyn Bridge. It took them 13 years. But this guy who had a dream, who defied the world, nobody in the world believed it could be done. You know, there's something called the 4-minute mile. Anybody know what 4-minute mile is? 4-minute mile. Before, I forgot the guy's name in England who ran the 4-minute mile. Everybody thought it's humanly impossible to run a 4-minute mile. It's impossible. Nobody could do it. Until there was one guy who jumped in and he ran the 4-minute mile. And you know what happened when he did it? Everybody could do it suddenly. Because it takes a leader. It takes a person to show you, yes, I can. To be able to dream big, to think big. That is Mashiach. That is Julius Caesar. Caesar, says the Gemara. That's why he's called Caesar. There was a story told about one of the Rebbes. His name is Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk. And one time, there was a strange Jew, a Meshuggah, a crazy guy in his town of Vitebsk, who spread a rumor. He said, Mashiach's coming. You know, it says before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a shofar sound. Like for 3 days before Mashiach, there's going to be a shofar, which, a normal shofar starts off high and then goes lower, lower, lower. This shofar will start off low and then go higher, 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 higher. So he spread a rumor, Mashiach's here. So the whole town, everybody goes, Mashiach's here, Mashiach's here. You know, it's very exciting. Mashiach's here, we're going to Israel. So Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Vitebsk heard the rumors, whatever. He went outside, he smelled outside the air, and he said, Mashiach's not here. Why? Because when Mashiach comes, it's going to be a different smell. The question is, why did he have to smell outside? Why couldn't he smell inside? Because inside his room, there was already the smell of Mashiach. It was only outside that he couldn't smell it. And this is Mashiach. It's going to take our consciousness and change it. So what's it going to do with Caesar and remember David HaMelech is called half a Caesar? I'm going to explain that in a moment. But this is connected also now. We are coming now to the month of Nisan. Nisan is known as the beginning of the spring, but the beginning of the year for what? Rosh Chodesh Nisan is known as the first month of the year. But I don't understand, the calendar starts Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. So what's the beginning of the year? Rosh Chodesh Nisan or Rosh Chodesh Tishrei? Rosh Hashanah, which we had 6 months ago, was when we celebrate Karna Nigala, creating the world in 6 days. But the first month, we read it in the parsha next week. HaChodesh Hazel Lachem Rosh Chodeshim. This month, Nisan, is the first month. What? What's going on? So,
is it the first time Hashem gave in Israel to do a mitzvah?
It was the first mitzvah. Yeah, the first mitzvah was Kiddush HaChodesh and Parshat Bo when the Jewish people left Egypt. Yes, and it's to do with that. So the simple, superficial answer I'll give you in a second is the following. Imagine you have a king who's infertile for a couple of years. This after 10 years, he and the queen give birth to a beautiful child. And they are ecstatic, and every single year they throw a party to celebrate the king's birthday, the prince's birthday. That's Rosh Hashanah. Then what happens is when the child is 10 years old, he's kidnapped. And everybody is completely devastated. The child has been kidnapped. It's horrible. It's terrible. We are completely shocked and devastated. So, after about a year or two, the child is found, right, safe and sound, We found him alive and well. And the king is so happy he throws a party. And from then on, every year he throws 2 parties. One when the child was born, his birthday, but one when the child was returned from captivity. And that's the superficial answer of Tishrei and Nisan. Tishrei celebrates the birthday of creation. And Nisan represents the birthday, the joy when we were released from being hostages. We are no longer hostages in captivity. Now we are free people. So that's why we have 2 heads of the year. But the deeper answer is the following. Listen carefully, because this is to do with the whole shir, and it's a game changer. There are 2 forces in this world. Force number 1 is the natural force. Force number 1 means when Tzvi wakes up in the morning, Tzvi has to have his coffee, scroll on his Facebook feed to see if anything's new, go to work, and make a living. If he doesn't go to work, he makes no money. By the way, from the Purim party last week, there was a girl who came there, and her mother asked me to please look out for her for a shidduch. Please look out for her. And she says she only convinced her daughter to sign up because I told her, you never know, right? It's like buying a lottery ticket. You never know. Maybe, I don't know. So I convinced her to come to the Purim party. And she normally stays at home. She doesn't even hear Megillah, nothing. Stays at home. So she came to the Purim party, and guess what? One of the first people I bumped into in those 1,000 people in that room, there was so many people there, was her. So I look at her mom. I actually forgot that I had, told her, So it actually happens to be that out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody, and I said, you know what? That's actually could be a great shidduch. That is a really, really good shidduch. So I tried to motion to him to come over, but he couldn't see me. There's a lot of people in the room. So I tried to call him, and then I realized downstairs there was no reception there. So I said to her, you hang on here, and let me go find him. I have somebody for you, So I went over and I couldn't find him. By the time I got to that section of the room, I couldn't find him. So I walked around for 10 minutes, told her, stay there. Couldn't find him. Anyway, I went upstairs to call him, and finally I got hold of him. He was hearing the Megillah upstairs. He had gone to one of the later readings. So I said, I have a girl for you. I want you to meet her. Because his mom also drives me crazy, by the way. So, his mom actually drives me a lot more crazy. And they're both young. They're both young people. So what happened is, I told him, come see me downstairs. So he came to see me straight away after the Megillah. He came to see me, and I go with him, holding his hand, walking around the room, finding her. But the problem is she was no longer there. And she had told me, I'll find you later, Anyway, I walked with him around for 10 minutes, could not find her. Tried to text her, but there's no service downstairs. And so I gave up. And then when I was leaving the party, he was with me. But anyway, I couldn't find him. So she told me at the end of the podcast, for her as well, she said, you know what, just give him my number. Anyway, I did that. They looked at each other's profiles, and they both like each other. And tonight's the first date. So I want to wish them luck. Bezrat Hashem should be good luck, and we should all be a good shidduch, But the point of the story is like this. Why am I saying the story? Oh, no. First of all, you should come to the Purim parties, and you should do ishtadlus, you should do what you want. But the reason why, and maybe you'll meet your shidduch here, right? Maybe. There's a lot of guys here tonight. Last week we had only girls for some reason. So welcome to the guys. The reason is because God created the world on a natural cycle, and God wants us to struggle to find our shidduch. I can tell you this. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago to somebody in our shul. There was a girl complaining that no men are interested in New York. Nobody cares. Nobody's interested. Nobody wants to update it. So I told my wife the conversation after. My wife said, the way she thinks is, if a person truly prepares himself or herself, truly prepares your neshama, ready for God, for a shidduch, you'll find it. But you have to truly prepare yourself. But I don't want to get into that shidduch conversation now. The point I'm trying to make is that there's a natural order of things. God wants the world to run naturally. He wants you to struggle to find your parnasa. He wants you to struggle to find your shidduch. He wants you to struggle to buy your Chabad house. Every single Chabad rabbi in the universe is trying to buy a property, including myself. We're trying. Every building we try, and nothing works, right? Nothing works. We're still trying. But he wants you to try naturally. And I'm still waiting for that $20 million check to just bounce out of nowhere. Not happening. But that's one kind of power or force in the world. That is called the Tishrei cycle. Tishrei is the natural. It's the natural phenomena that God created in the world. Tishrei. But then there's something called Nisan. Nisan is the month of miracles. Nisan is when God took us out of Egypt in a miraculous way. There's another power, there's another force in the world that's called the miracle. So you take a Jew. On the one hand, the Jew lives a natural life cycle, but on the other hand, the Jew is a miracle. Everything about the Jew is a miracle. For 4,000 years we've existed with all the ancient Romans, Greeks, Turks, Ottomans, Germans, Hitler, Stalins, everybody's dead and wiped out, and we're still here. That is a miracle. So a Jew is an oxymoron. On the one hand, we live in a natural life. On the other hand, we are connected to God and we are a miraculous thing. They tell the story of Rabbi Meir from Premishlan, that every day he used to walk to the mikveh. So the problem is he lived on top of a hill and the mikveh was on the bottom of the hill. So he walked, in the summer was no problem, walked down the hill, walked back up, no problem. But in the winter when it was full of snow, he did the same thing. He walked down and he didn't slip. He never slipped down, not up, not on the way up, not on the way down, nothing. So there were two skeptics. One came to town and they see this Meir in Parashan. They say, oh, there's got to be some sort of secret. It's not slippery. It's not there, Anyway, they watch him and he does it. So they try to do the same thing. They take 2 or 3 steps and they slip and slide and break their bones. So the next day, they asked Rabbi Meir Parashan, tell me, how don't you fall when you go down the snow? And he said, when you are connected above, you do not fall below. A Jew is connected above. We are connected above in a miraculous way, and that's why we do not falter below. No matter what challenge we have, we turn to God in our pnimius, in our essence, we turn to God. And we pray to God with all our heart and soul, and it all works out. Because we have, on the one hand, the natural, on the other hand, we have the miracle. That is the Nisan force in the world and the Tishrei force in the world. Both forces exist simultaneously in the world. It's what makes us so special. It's what makes us tick. It's why we are around, why we have existed for so long. We had the group of soldiers who were here. One of the soldiers is a career soldier who was just 20 years in the army in the Kfir Brigade, an officer. And I look at him for 10 days. And this guy is in so much pain. His back is broken, his collar broke, his neck was completely shattered and broken. There was a big wall that fell on him, including bullets and a grenade. And he's got bleeding in his brain, cognitive problems. He's in so much pain. You look at him, you see the pain. But not one day in the trip did I not see him smiling. He was smiling the whole time. He's so happy. He cracked a joke last night at dinner. We were Tel Aviv Rosh. He cracked a joke. He said, in the army, I'm the boss. I am an officer. People view me as God. When I come home, there's only one boss. That's my wife. He says, I'm no officer. I'm no commander. She's the officer. She's the commander. And he's smiling and he's so happy. There's another guy, his right hand is shattered. CRPS he has. CRPS is called Complex Regional Pain Syndrome. It's also called suicide's disease. When you have this kind of pain, you actually commit suicide because it's just so painful. It's crazy pain. And we brought him to NYU. We wanted to do an X-ray. He said, if I have an X-ray, I'll be in so much pain. I just can't do it. So we have a real problem with this guy. But he's so happy. I actually asked him to put on tefillin on day 1. And he said, no, don't do that. I haven't done it in years. Especially since, he said, I grew up religious, but since October 7, I've definitely lost my religion. Anyway, we became friends. And by the 5th day, on Sunday, he put on tefillin with me, and he said, let me take a selfie. I want to show my father. He'll cry from so much nachas. My father's religious. He'll actually cry from so much nachas. That's what he told me. So he put on tefillin. He said, I want to put on every day now with you. And then one more story about the soldier. There's a soldier who had surgery here Friday, nerve surgery. And the doctor who did the surgery on him actually got angry. This week he got angry. I've never seen him angry. I said, what happened? Because the soldier called me one day this week and he says, my bandage has fallen off. It's blood. What should I do? He's panicking, in his hotel room. So I called the doctor and I said, what should he do? So the doctor tells me somebody sent him a picture of this soldier going to the gym that morning doing weights. And the doctor had given strict instructions not to move from his bed. I mean, he can move from his bed, but certainly not weights. Of course, that's what's going to happen. So I called up the soldier and his aide, and I said to the aide, I want you to tie him up and not let him move out of his room. Tie him up. So the soldier laughs. He says, I'm Golani. Golani, nothing can tie us up. That's what we do. Nothing's going to help. But the point is, these guys are so happy, and that is the oxymoron. On the one hand, we're in pain. That's the natural. But on the other hand, we are so happy. We are so positive. That's Nissan. There's a Nissan energy. Now, what we need to do now, especially coming to the month of Nissan, is we need to accept the Nissan energy into our lives. Allow the Nissan energy to permeate you. If you don't let it permeate you, it won't. You want to get ready for a shidduch, a miraculous shidduch. Allow that energy into your life. Believe in it. Grab it. Do what's necessary to truly make that leap of faith. Get yourselves ready and it will happen. You want a building, you're a Chabad rabbi, yeah, me? Allow that miracle to just take place inside of you. That's the month of Nisan. And that is Mashiach. Julius Caesar. Why is he Julius Caesar? Because when you can't go out the natural way, you find a door, you open up a door, you cut open a C-section, you open the door and you go out. That's Mashiach. When you look at the world and the world is so dark and so evil and it's so difficult, Mashiach opens up a door. He opens up a door in our heart, in our soul, and in the world. The world will view Israel as the most powerful. We'll have servants from all over the world, the Talmud says. Serving every Jew will be servants. 2,000 servants. Gog u'Magog, Israel will be strong, will be powerful, will be recognizable. And it's already starting to happen in our lives. That's what's starting now already. But that's Mashiach. That's why he's called Julius Caesar. C-section, Yotzei Dofen. You open up a wall. He will open up the greatest revolution in the history of all revolutions. You know, Rabbi Shlomo Kunin, he's a Chabad rabbi on the West Coast. So, you know, he bought a couple of buildings in charge of the whole West Coast. It's pretty big, the whole region there. You know, it's not just one state, California. I think he's in charge of Arizona as well. Oh, West Coast. Alaska, I think, is included in his region, his territory. And one time he was struggling. And the banks had called him into court, foreclosure. And he had no hope. He had no money. Nothing. He had no money, nothing at all. He had no way of getting out of this foreclosure. And he was in court with his lawyer, and the other side had their fancy lawyers, and they wanted, I don't know, $1, $1 per whatever. And he calls the Rebbe. And the message that he received from the Rebbe's office while he was in court, right? He went out to the public phone. The Rebbe said, "Be besimcha, be happy, everything's going to work out." So what he did was, he's in the public payphone, Rabbi Shlomo Kunin. The Rebbe said, "Be happy, everything's going to work out." He started dancing and dancing right then and there, right? He just hung up the phone, he started dancing around. And the lawyers of the other side happened to be passing by just then. It was a lunch break in the middle of the court case. And they said one of two things is happening. Either the guy's a Meshuggah, which they should have actually realized, or he just got a phone call where he has some hidden ace up his sleeve. So they went back and they asked him, "Will you compromise if we give you, 50% off?" And he said, "Absolutely not." So they said 25%. And he said, "Okay, fine, I'll do the deal." And he did the deal like that, 25%, all because the Rebbe told him to be besimcha, to be happy. This is what we are. On the one hand, we live the natural cycle. The natural way of things is you don't have money, you're broke, you're completely broke. But then there's a supernatural way, the Nissan miracles. The Rebbe tells you to be happy and you accept the miracles. You live with the miracles upon you on a daily basis. I've said this story before, but it's so powerful, I'm going to say it again. The Kloisenberger Rebbe lived in the Holocaust. He had a wife and 10 children. He came out of the Holocaust, by the way. His wife was murdered in the Holocaust. All his children were murdered. He came out, he remarried, and he actually built all the Kloisenberger Hasidus in Israel, built the Lariado hospital there in Israel. But they once asked him, what was the hardest day of the Holocaust for you? And they thought, it's going to be the day that his wife was murdered, the day that his children were murdered, or maybe the day that they tortured him, they afflicted him, they beat him up. There's a whole story about it. One time the Germans literally beat him within a pulp of his life. And he said the hardest day was in 1945 when the Americans opened up the doors of Auschwitz or Birkenau, wherever he was, and we were redeemed. They said, that was your hardest day when the Americans came to liberate you. He said, why? He said, because what kept me going throughout my pain and my torture and my suffering throughout the Holocaust was the belief that I will get out And the one getting me out is going to be Mashiach. And when I realized that the American army, it was the most painful, it was the hardest day of my life. We are 70 odd years later. And we know that in our day, in 2025, Mashiach is coming today. There was a New York Times reporter once went to the Rebbe in 1990 to get $1, and he said to the Rebbe, "What's your message to the world?" You know, these Instagram influencers, they meet today. Somebody met Eli Sharabi, right? Eli Sharabi, the hostage. And he says, "What's your message to the world?" What did Eli Sharabi say? Anybody saw it? See it? Eli Sharabi, the hostage, survived 500 days in hell. He spoke in the UN now. Danny Danon's parading him around. He said, "My message to the world is, Am Yisrael Chai." And it's a powerful message, by the way, a very powerful message, because those 3 words encapsulate everything he went through. That despite everything, Am Yisrael Chai. But what the Rebbe said, my message to the world, tell the world, this was 1990, tell the world, Mashiach is coming now, and get ready for it. The Rebbe another time said, people think I'm crazy about Mashiach. They don't realize I'm really crazy about Mashiach. Mashiach is coming now. It's Mashiach energy that we need to absorb inside of us. It's the Nissan energy. It's the Passover spirit, which is coming. We all have to get ready. But if you don't let it inside of you, it won't come. You have to let it inside of you. And that is Mashiach. He's going to revolutionize the world, make us realize in the world that the world is ready. That the darkness that you perceive, that the hostages that you see, that the terrible chaos going on over here, everything was a boss in the universe. We will be able to see how COVID was Mashiach, how everybody died, how the hostages was Mashiach, how Hamas is Mashiach, Hezbollah is Mashiach, Iran is Mashiach. All our problems are all preparations for Mashiach, not only on a global level, but in your personal life. There doesn't exist anybody here who doesn't have major problems, and all your problems are all preparing yourself for Mashiach. So what you need to do, go out today, realize he's coming, and prepare yourself adequately. This is the month of Nisan. L'chaim v'livracha.